Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. 11 o'clock Eastern on the East Coast. This is Don from the Defion Productions Podcast, the hardest working nobody in Bitcoin. This is the Defion Productions Podcast, episode 70, the only live streamed podcast in the Western New York area, streaming, talking about Bitcoin and crypto on a weekly basis, Thursdays at 11. We are going to talk about a lot of things today. We got a lot to talk about in regards to what's going to be happening the next couple of days. Bitcoin strategic reserve talk, Trump inauguration talk. Let's jump into the charts. We will talk about the Bitcoin price as Bitcoin is sitting at 99,378. It did cross 100 last night after starting the week at about 90,000. Ethereum at 33.3561. The biggest mover has been XRP. $3.31, up about 11.25% just in the 24-hour, up definitely much more than that in the past 2 days. And Solana is at $209.12, total market cap of $3.47 trillion. Bitcoin dominance still sitting at 56%, and the Fear and Greed Index at 60. Troy, how you feeling? Matt, how you feeling? What's up,
great.
Gentlemen?
Are we able to share the screen? All right, perfect.
Yeah,
no, I'm feeling good. Bitcoin did breach 100K again, which probably instilled some optimism in the market, but this is just noise. What I like to see is what we had for that last, what was this, from March to about November. We had this range and we had this consolidation. We were kind of like trending down, but we had that deviation below the support, which caught all the, this is a liquidation cascade, and this, not all the time, but the probabilities of that ending the end of a sell-off are higher than not. And that's kind of what we're seeing again here. We're seeing that consolidation range and then that deviation wick, which is short-tempered. The wicks are always short-tempered. It always gets bought back up. But you can see that the people that are long are trapped. So they're forced to sell their positions. And then the buyers come in, buy it all up. So we're kind of ranging right now. So I don't have true conviction until we start breaking back above 103. Obviously, it depends on your time horizons. But you can see this happens often. This happened last bull run too. We have that range, and then you have those deviations, those wicks, just trapping everyone, and then we just resume forward. So, I mean, I'm just going to just let the markets do its thing. And, I can't stare at the chart and make the chart go up. So I'm just trading price action, really. So, but we do have a special guest here, and I want him to introduce himself. He's actually been on before, but he was who I stayed in Colombia with. So feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me back on. I think this is my third or fourth one.
Yeah, you were in studio for one. Yeah.
I was in studio for one. So, I love hopping on here when I can, giving my input on the market. So, yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Cobra_Wise1. I also retweeted this. Donald tagged me. So you can find me on there talking about Bitcoin. I'm into alts as well. Mainly alts, perpetual futures is, my playing field and where I strive. But, I just follow trends and economic seasons pretty much to make my trading and investing decisions. So I'm glad to be on. Thanks for having me, boys.
Absolutely. Our pleasure.
Yeah. So
Troy, like you were saying, with the Bitcoin total chart, whichever one you're looking at, really the same thing.
Yeah.
We're definitely in that consolidation period right now. And I think a lot of it's going to come down to, what does Trump tackle first once he gets in office? So there's a little bit of uncertainty in the market. And then also, liquidity hasn't caught up yet. I mean, I'm actually really happy that we stayed in this range, even when the, economic factors haven't, totally caught up with the market yet.
Yeah.
We're absolutely going to fly here just based off of, the ideology that, a lot of the economic factors, we don't know what Trump's going to do, and liquidity hasn't caught up yet. So once those two things are solidified, liquidity injections start happening, a TGA spend down happens. I mean, we're really going to see this market fly. So now is a great time to be DCAing in, for anyone who's not in or thinking about getting in, DCA in, dollar cost average. You set a set amount and you set a period to, invest over. and you get an average price range when you do something like that.
Especially when we're in accumulation right now. So that's like when the market's reverting back to its mean, you kind of want to just either be cash and be able to buy the dips, because the thing about the bull runs is they're not as easy as you think they are, and the goal of the bull run is to survive, right? Anyone could take 3-4x leverage position and wipe out the portfolio before the real fun starts, the real magic happens. So the thing is, if you're not a professional trader, you want to just be sitting spot, which means you're just buying the tokens. You're not trading it. You're not leveraging it. That's kind of like Don's approach to Bitcoin. And even his shit coins he holds, he's not really leveraging. So the goal is to survive, survive and take lifestyle chips off the table, because that increases the quality of your life. And on top of that, you're paying yourself. You need to have a strategy. I was reading a quote actually, and I want to share this with you before we dive into the news. It basically says, goals are for people who care about winning once. Sorry, my phone's going off. Goals are for people who care about winning once. Systems are for people who care about winning repeatedly. And that's the thing. Like, you fall down to the level of your systems. And that's why we stress systems, and not emotionally trading and just gambling. That's the thing with like XRP hitting all-time highs. Is it all-time highs, Don? 3 something?
No, I don't think
it was the 365 all-time high the other day.
That's good for the market. I think that's good for the market, because I think retail interest is starting to gain momentum, and that's what we like to see for the next half of this bull run too.
I want to put it in perspective too, though, because I've seen a lot of excitement over this XRP stuff, but like for somebody that's been around for a long time, like if you're one of the XRP, whatever you call them, army shitcoin people that love it, and you've been around for 10 years in the space, and you had XRP in 2017, you're back to even. And if you're an XRP hodler, if there is such a thing, and you've been holding on to XRP since 2017, you're basically back to even.
Let me pull that chart up.
It hasn't really performed outside of like your initial ICO or whatever, however it was developed. And I don't know the background necessarily, but I'm sure when it first was released, it was pennies like every coin is, and then it shot up. So if you've been holding since day one, which I don't know why you would be, you're obviously up a ton. But I mean, if you're somebody that got in anytime in the last 8 or 9 years, like, you haven't made any money in XRP unless you bought it, unless you got in when it dropped to like 20 cents or whatever it was in 2022. Those people may have made money.
During the bear market.
What's frustrating is seeing you see XRP hit the price it's at now in January of 2018. So that's like 6 years, right? 6 years of just down. Like, we're finally
January of 2018. That makes sense, because Bitcoin would have topped a month prior to that. So yeah, they had that altcoin season a month after.
So that's crazy to see. Like, if you're accumulating, like, people are like, buy XRP. I'm like, if I'm going to buy XRP, I would have bought it the last, at least 3 years during the 2022, 2023 bear market when it was trading at 50 cents. I'm not going to chase it now. It can go higher, but I mean, how much higher? Maybe $6.
XRP can definitely go. It has room to go.
But the problem with XRP is the narratives. Like, people say like XRP's narratives are the reason why it's going to go higher, and I take the opposite side and say the XRP narratives are what hold this coin back and kill it, because they've been saying, and again, I've been in this space for a long time, and back in 2017, 2018, the narrative was it's going to replace SWIFT and it's going to be what the banks use. And it's like, here we are 6 years later and none of that has happened. And they keep saying it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's like, the technology is so much better in traditional banking than it was back then 6 years ago. Like, why would they take this coin that Garlinghouse owns? And again, I don't know specifically. I'm just going to throw a number out there. The last time I looked, somewhere between 15 and 20% of the total supply, where it could be artificially manipulated by him selling. Like, why would you want to have a coin that's going to be volatile like that to be the guardrails of a like? If anything, and again, I'm not advocating for this because I'm the Bitcoin maxi. But if they're going to use anything, why wouldn't you use Tether? Or why wouldn't you use USDC? Like something stable that the dollar is going to be tied 1-to-1. Why would you use a coin that could go from 20 cents to $3 or from $3 to 20 cents? Like, why? Again, it goes back to
with XRP. They have the stable coin is what they use to transact on, and then they have their coin on the side that obviously fluctuates, that's on their blockchain, but they do use a stable coin for transactions.
Okay, so then the stable coin would have the value, but the XRP token would be irrelevant. It's like saying with because a lot of trading with Bitcoin is done with Tether, and it's like saying, oh, if Tether collapsed to zero, that Bitcoin would collapse to zero. It's like, no. Would there be a drop? Sure. But it's like, they're not necessarily tied together. Like Bitcoin isn't tied to Tether. If Tether were to go away, something else would replace it, and Bitcoin would go right back to doing what it's supposed to be doing. So if the XRP token is what they're using to replace Swift, and again, I don't know if that's the case, but if that's the argument for the narrative, then why does the XRP token have value? It's a speculative asset. Again, it goes back to just people are going to bid it, and if they bid high, it goes high. If they bid low, it goes low. That's all that it is. And again, a centralized asset that a founder owns a large percentage of, which is what Bitcoin isn't, and all these other coins are, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they have Ripple Labs, the fact that the Ethereum Foundation exists, this doesn't sit well with you, you're saying?
None of it does. That's why I'm an advocate for being a Bitcoin maxi, and all those shit coins are just that, shit coins. There's so much risk owning those other coins outside of the speculators. You have large entities that hold large percentages of the coin that, depending on how they feel, can manipulate the price up to the upside or to the downside. And in most cases to the downside when they sell.
The founder. Well, I would just have to disagree. Well, I totally see where you're coming from on the speculative aspect of, getting into these coins. But if you can systemize them and you can trend them, I mean, there is serious money to be made.
There's money to be made. And I would argue that there's money to be made, of course, but like, you have to wait
for the top 2% of people doing it. Yes.
But you also have to understand that when I'm buying an asset, like I'm holding it, like my time horizon is 10 to 20 years plus. Like,
right. So why would you do it with any of these assets?
So why would I do it with any? So, but also I understand where Matt's coming from, because if you can successfully trade, which 95% of traders fail, it's just a fact. If you can outperform, let's say Bitcoin, and you know how to do ratio analysis, then I understand your point. But as long as you're using your profits to either buy more Bitcoin or just increase your lifestyle, what I mean?
Let's take a step back for a second, because I know where this conversation is going, and I want to reset this, because when you're talking about making investments, I 100% agree with you, because I've said this a million times. You should be investing for the long term, no matter what asset class you're in. If it's real estate, if it's equities, whatever you're investing in, if you're investing for the long term, you're already doing it with the right mindset, right? So why, with anybody with that logic, why would they ever take a look at, and again, when I say crypto, I don't mean Bitcoin. Why would they look at crypto and say, that's where I want to put my money for a long time period, when you're looking at assets that have not performed since, some assets since 2017, 2018, other assets since 2020?
Oh, 1,000%.
They're sitting there doing nothing's hit an all-time high. We're look at how far we are in this bull run. We are deep. We are deep in this bull run, Troy. Like, we've been doing this podcast for a long time now. We're 2.5 years into this podcast, and we are way towards the middle innings of this bull run. And Bitcoin is the only asset that has hit an all-time high outside of BNB, and maybe some other fart coin bullshit that didn't exist 4 years ago. Did we lose Troy? We lost him?
He'll be back. Yeah.
Well, Matt, I mean, I'll keep the argument going with you. Like, when you're looking at investing in something long term, and there he's back. Okay, when you're investing in something long term, the thesis that I'm going to invest in crypto because I'm going to get rich in crypto, and getting rich meaning I'm going to do the same hodl strategy that I do with Bitcoin, it just doesn't work with crypto. And I don't understand the argument for how it does.
No,
What's the what? Please give me the other side of the. I'm all ears.
I
look at Ethereum. I look at Ethereum. I mean, you haven't made money in Ethereum since 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you bought Ethereum in the depths of the bear market, which we know people didn't do because people don't invest. They FOMO. The only people that bought Ethereum were people that already owned Ethereum. Correct. That were making their buy that they got in at 4,500 less when they bought in at 2,000.
I totally agree, and I'm a trader, and I totally agree. These are not long-term investments. These are things you can hold for a couple weeks, a couple months, but you're not holding this into the bear market whatsoever. And you have to trend it, and you really do have to know what you're doing. And it's definitely not for everyone.
Most
it's a big time investment as well. There's a lot of quantitative analysis that goes into it. But if you do it properly, the gains can be extraordinary. Now, back to your point, I completely agree. Bitcoin is, or, you could gamble on Ethereum. Will Ethereum reach 9, 10 grand one day? Most likely. Could it go to 30, 40, 50 grand one day? It could.
Every day that passes, it just looks worse and worse to me.
It looks terrible. But in a way, I almost think that Ethereum's going to have a crazy pump. And this is just totally speculation, just a gut feeling.
No,
I have a feeling Ethereum's
I think you're right.
Absolutely crazy because it's way overdue. If you look by market cap, it is the second token right underneath Bitcoin. And it's at $3,000 and Bitcoin's at $100,000. So if you put those 2 and 2 together, I would say Ethereum is in value. The investors that we look at, 42 Macro, Darius Dow, he also agrees, he's an economist. Ethereum's an extraordinary value right now. But like you said, Bitcoin is the ultimate investment. I'd say the number 2 long-term investment, if you're going to do one, would definitely be Ethereum following second.
I also think people.
Why? Can you give me a thesis?
Why do I think Ethereum is the second best?
No. Not why it's second best. Why do you think Ethereum's a long-term good hold? Give me a thesis for that.
I think there's a ton of, and this is total speculation, and I can go and do some research on it and post it on my page to back it up. But I think Ethereum's long overdue for its huge gains that it hasn't seen in a long time. And it's number 2 by market cap. It goes Bitcoin and Ethereum. Everyone knows Ethereum. It has, a huge, sentiment behind it when it will eventually pump. And it's known to be a lagger, in cycles. So, we'll obviously see what happens, but I think it's extremely undervalued. And, I think it's going to do an extraordinary pump at some point.
On a valuation standpoint, it's undervalued. It also has unit bias. So people that are going down the coin ranks, they see like, oh, this is trading at 3,000. Same with Dogecoin. Oh, this is trading at 30 cents. This is going to go to $100. Like there is a unit bias behind it, but I think you're talking about the long-term value, which I personally think it's going to be the financial settlement layer for stable coins. I think also Solana has product market fit as well. But if I feel more comfortable holding Bitcoin for 20 years and Ethereum for 20 years. But again, 100%. I think there's going to be an altcoin season the second half or sometime this year where I'm going to be selling my Ethereum. I'm not saying I'm going to sell all of it, but I want to definitely make it a goal because that would suck to be in the crypto industry and coming out, because I know people that own no Bitcoin, they're in just crypto like shit coins, and that would suck.
I would argue that's most of the industry.
Yeah,
that's most of the industry. Let me fix that comment. I would say most of the industry, the heavy part of their bags are not non-Bitcoin. They may have some Bitcoin. So to say that they don't own any Bitcoin, but the major part of their bags are probably crypto. Like the Bitcoin maxis like myself are few and far between.
Yeah.
They're rooting for Fartcoin and they're meme coining and they're hoping that, Shiba Inu or Dogecoin, or they're waiting for ETH to do something. It's like and again, I until I'm proven otherwise and see it do something different every 4 years, when Bitcoin does its parabolic moves, altcoins do ride the coattails. I don't have any reason to believe at this point yet that won't happen. However, with that being said, we're late in the cycle, and usually by now we've seen at least much lower Bitcoin dominance than 56%. This is a high Bitcoin dominance. This is a very high Bitcoin dominance this late in the cycle.
I also think this,
which I love. I love it. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying if you're one of those guys that their bags are more other shit coins than Bitcoin, it's got to give you some worry.
I think the crypto like altcoin market is oversaturated. I think Pump Fund ruined that. I think this is not a concentrated market where there's money flowing into like the top 10 like it used to. Now it's so spread, like diluted across this ecosystem. It's very hard, right? So you have to be very selective with this bull run as opposed to other bull runs if you're around where you can just buy anything and it goes up. So I think this is an institutional driven bull run. The majors, I think ETH will have its time to shine, but obviously it's Bitcoin at the moment. Solana is doing really well. I think that's with anticipation of an ETF later this year. So I just think you have to be very selective, and not everything's going to go up. So find the narratives you believe in and trade the narratives. But narratives die and people sell, and you don't want to be round tripping a narrative when you could just have rotated that in the optimal asset like Bitcoin. So just that's something to keep in mind as well.
Now, for the viewers as well, if you're on Twitter, so let's say you're in the crypto space and you're having a little bit of fun, if you want to throw 500, 1,000, whatever your unit size on it for, you know, some of the people that might have more money, $5,000, whatever it is, if you like something and you see a project online, like for example, like a Shiba Inu or like a Pudgy Penguins or one of those little stupid projects that you think has legs and you want to go do a little gamble, buy it on spot and just hold it and wait until we're peaking out in the cycle and Bitcoin's at around 175K and then sell it. And I bet you would make money doing something like that, but that's not investing, that's gambling. So there's a difference.
In theory, that makes sense, because if you think Bitcoin's only going to go up 75% from here in that, you know, like you said, 100 to 175, and you can find something that does a 3x. In theory, you get more Bitcoin by doing that, and I like the thought of that. The problem is most people that come into this space, they don't have logic, they don't have discipline, and what they end up doing is they end up doing what you said. And when they find that coin that 5Xs, they round trip their bags and they end up with no whatever coin they were in, no fiat, and no Bitcoin. They end up with 0.
I think it's also important.
There's nothing you can do to help those people. They have to either get a mentor and learn from him who's been through it, or they have to go through that experience. But then the next time they enter into crypto, maybe they get burned again on a different play. Eventually, they learn from these mistakes. And, you know, maybe during the bear market, they start accumulating again. And then the next bull run, they're educated because they had changed their first bull run. So
I think that
some people, I mean, they're going to have to go through and experience these different things. And for anyone else who's also watching this, if you want to get into something, a long-term investment that's not, you know, Bitcoin, run a ratio on it as well. So go on TradingView, type in BTC USD / ETH USD, and it'll tell you which one's outperforming in the current, you know, market. And put a simple oscillator on it too. Put a regularized moving average oscillator on there, and you can even just read the chart and you'll be able to see which one's outperforming.
But not many coins are outperforming Bitcoin. That's the problem.
Yeah, because the dominance is so high. That's what the point I'm making. Yeah.
Yeah. But you can definitely find the coins. You just have to, you know, go through a bunch of, you know.
You would have to do research and spend a lot of time, and you have to watch them. And is it an investment if it's going to tank during, you know, it's going to peak and then it's going to tank definitely lower than where you bought it at? But Don, can you say the same thing about Bitcoin? Where do you think Bitcoin's price is during the bear market in 2026? Well, this is a double question.
Yeah.
How long does the bull run go in your eyes, and what's the bottom floor price during the bear market?
The answer to both of those questions can't be answered until we see the first 90 days of the Trump presidency, in my opinion. I need to see how Trump, number one, if day one, again, this isn't being talked about enough. Bitcoin maxis talk about it, but I don't think like the crypto space is talking about enough, mostly because they haven't been around long enough to know what it really means. But if Trump comes in next week and day one or that first week frees Ross Ulbricht, that will be enormous. Absolutely. Like, I don't think people realize how big that'll be. You will solidify the relationship with Bitcoin maxis, or more importantly, the Bitcoin whale maxis that have a lot of capital that can really make things move and shake. You know what I'm saying? They'll automatically be loyal to President Trump. And I think some of them maybe already kind of are, but they're waiting to see, is he going to follow through on that promise to free Ross Ulbricht? And if he does that very early in the presidency, then he's going to have those guys to have his back. That's number one.
It could be day one.
Now explain to the viewers Ross, who Ross is.
So Ross Ulbricht was the creator of Silk Road. Silk Road was the go-to spot in 2010, 2011 to buy anything illegal. I mean, you could buy a hitman on there, you could buy drugs, you could buy prostitutes. It was a black market per se on the dark web where
you know all about that website.
Where you could use Bitcoin, or you had to use Bitcoin to transact.
Where I bought my first Bitcoin back then.
If you go back and look like how much you could buy like an ounce of crack for, and it was like today it was like $1 million worth of Bitcoin for something stupid. But anyway, so Ross gets arrested. Some would argue illegally in another country, and they confiscate all the Bitcoin that he had on Silk Road, which at the time was hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin. Along the way, they've done some auctions. In 2015, Tim Draper bought a couple tranches of the Silk Road coins. But he got arrested, convicted, and he's been sitting in prison since 2011, doing a life sentence. A life sentence more worse than people that have killed, raped children, like a harsh sentence for basically just facilitating a website. Like, he didn't sell drugs, he didn't sell hitmen or prostitutes. Like, he just facilitated the website. Like, you know, and you know, he made the profits and such, but you know, was given what many would argue a very, very harsh sentence. And the Bitcoin community since that day has rallied around Ross to free him. And, you know, Trump is the first president to even give us a conversation on it. And he made a statement in June at the Bitcoin conference that he would free him if he was elected. Now he's been elected. Now that's a big promise he needs to keep. And I think if he wants to build and continue to build equity with the community, that has to be, I would argue, that's more important than the strategic Bitcoin reserve to true Bitcoin maxis. To me, at least.
Speaking of the Bitcoin strategic reserve, I just shared my screen on something I want to transition to in the second half of this podcast, talking about Cointelegraph. A total of 8 states are leading the charge to push a strategic Bitcoin reserve bill. We have Florida, Alabama, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and Texas. And then you can see Florida leading the charge. As always, a strategic Bitcoin reserve bill is exactly the kind of forward thinking we need. Let's see which states follow next. What are your thoughts about this? Because they're saying that crypto, do you think it's going to be a crypto reserve bill or a Bitcoin reserve bill?
The first thing I think of when I look at that is when I look at those 8 states, besides Pennsylvania and Ohio. Well, Ohio is more, Pennsylvania being a toss-up state. The rest of those states are all red.
Yeah.
Florida, Alabama, I believe New Hampshire is. Pennsylvania went red this time, but it's traditionally purple. Ohio, it's been red. North Dakota, Oklahoma, Texas, all red states. So I see, and for what I've gathered, I guess the closest is at the current moment is Florida is actually leading, because Texas has been really big for mining the last couple of years. But I guess Florida is really making a big push to be the first one to actually do it. So I mean, we have states doing it. It only makes sense that, you know, the United States does it as a nation and just puts it on the docket. I mean, I think it's important in the first 90 days we get some clarification on that. I think while he has the Senate, while he has the Congress, and while he also has Democrat senators in congressmen and women that are pro Bitcoin and pro crypto as well. This is goes across partisan lines. So while he's got, the newness, I think, Senator Lummis, who's been unbelievable, the Wyoming senator, of really pushing this. She's been number one of everybody, even beyond Trump, before Trump, pushing all of this, that we need to get some clarification on what they're going to do. And again, to take a long-winded response to your question, Matt, I think if Ross gets released early and the strategic Bitcoin reserve picks up steam, there is an argument that this 4-year cycles specifically for Bitcoin might break. That we won't see the deep bear markets that we've seen in the past. Not to say there won't be any more bear markets, because we'll still have volatility. But number one, the ceiling on the price for this year and next year drastically expands. And a world where we no longer have 4-year deep bear market cycles could also exist if those two things happen in the first 90 days of Trump's presidency.
I completely agree.
Answering that without knowing those two things, I don't think would be fair at this point.
Well, as the market matures too, it's not going to have deep 70% pullbacks moving forward. I think that 40% is more realistic.
Now, you think a sentiment driver like the Silk Road guy getting released from prison would have that big of an effect on? I mean, because that's sentiment, there's nothing to do with, economy.
What will happen is, if Ross does not get freed from jail, the movers and shakers in Bitcoin are guys that hold lots of coins, who are normal dudes like me that got rich because they bought lots of Bitcoin 10 years ago and held. So those are the guys that are movers and shakers in Bitcoin. They hold a lot of capital, they hold a lot of value, and they understand the importance of freeing Ross. And if Trump goes back on his word, they will not support Trump as much as they're supporting him now and have been supporting him the last 6 months. They'll look at him and be like, he's not the guy we thought he was. If he's not going to do that, he's definitely not going to do this, and that will turn sentiment. That will be a catalyst for turning sentiment, in my opinion.
I hope that's not the case.
I mean,
that's why it's important.
Maybe. I think the biggest driver is going to be, the liquidity injections when they come in, because the value of Bitcoin is essentially fiat over Bitcoin in the denominator. So as more money's printed, there's only 21 million Bitcoins.
Well, we're just waiting for the PBOC to stimulate, which they can until the dollar starts to weaken.
And that's what Bitcoin follows, is the liquidity cycles.
The dollar, the DXY is pretty much, I think 110's the top. I just hope Trump using his negotiation tactics with tariff, creating a stronger dollar, is forcing these other countries to the table. So I think when we get more clarity on that too, as well as other, there's a lot of fundamental and sentiment things we're waiting for. That's probably why we're seeing this consolidation. But once we get more clarity, I think this catalyzes the next leg up.
Trump.
Well, now, Don, you've talked about this before too, with Trump's different policies. If he attacks tariffs or illegals in the country, which will affect the job market. Which one he does first.
The job market's out the window after 2030. Once we have the AIs take over, I have a thread I do want to go into, because this goes into a podcast me and Don shot a while ago about talking about, when the first phone came out or when the first TV came out, and these were very expensive items. Would you guys be open into talking a little bit about this thread? I think AI is really relevant for what we're discussing. So,
I think.
Let me just hammer home real quick the point about the SBR and Ross. You're right about the liquidity aspect, but I definitely believe that without Ross being freed, we're not going to get the SBR, because he needs Bitcoiners to help him with this SBR, and it's going to be a prerequisite that Ross gets freed before they do anything, because true hardcore Bitcoiners know we don't need Trump. We don't need nation states. Bitcoin is going to win in the long run, no matter what. We've been waiting 16 years. We can wait another 15. So if we don't get the SBR now, then we don't get the SBR now. It's going to eventually happen. Nation states are going to eventually adopt. We're not going to bend the knee to a guy that's going to lie to us and say he's going to do something and not follow through on it. So he's going to need the Bitcoin community if he's honest about the SBR, and the Bitcoin community is going to need him to release Ross. He doesn't release Ross, he doesn't get the Bitcoin community's help, the SBR idea dies, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not in that community of, hodlers and Bitcoin maxis who have been in the game for, a long time here. So I that's good to know that, that's what you guys are thinking in terms of, the Silk Road guy. But yeah, Troy, what was that point that you just mentioned?
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
The AI.
So,
and this is kind of total speculation, real quick. If you combine AI with financial instruments and tokenize that and put it on the blockchain and have some innovative technology, I think the first people to do that, and you get in early to those projects on a little gamble. I'm not saying throw your whole portfolio on it.
You're promoting.
But if you want to sprinkle, if you see that and you want to sprinkle into it, I guarantee those explode because
we don't make any guarantees here.
Yeah, I'm primarily in altcoins, so I watch them, and the best performers are always the financial ones that have a financial institution or some sort of financial utility in terms of investing for funds, and they all do their different things. But anything that combines crypto with
AI,
financial instruments and investing, and then you sprinkle AI into that. I mean, look at how many buzzwords.
If you just want to look into the infrastructure, you could just use Chainlink. That's oracles that bring real world data on chain. So if you're talking about equities being traded on the blockchain, there are financial products you can buy or platforms that that are using this. But like that's speculative. I feel like that's more speculative than something like Chainlink, which is actually the infrastructure beneath everything that allows this technology to be in place. I do want to talk about the 2035 prediction about how productivity is going to increase, but the labor is going to decrease, and all labor metrics are going to be out the window by 2030 once AI is in full force. By 35, robots will be mass produced like computers and drive labor costs to zero an hour. The secret lies in how data and transitors drive costs down over time, why the robotics revolution is inevitable, and how Jensen Hung's bold prediction will come true. Disruptions happen when technologies enable cost reduction by 10x or increasing utility per dollar by 10x. Every disruption follows the same pattern. DVDs to Netflix, more movies per dollar, film to digital camera, more pictures per dollar. Humanoid robots will do the same for labor, and this just shows a chart of different like TV screens and crystal meth production and car tires, and then the white, I believe, is digitalized.
To tie it back to like the topic of crypto and Bitcoin, how does this all tie into our industry?
Because crypto is AI. And let me finish this thread, but what do you mean by that? Because I think Bitcoin and crypto are going to be the how these robots, it's going to be more used transactional with Bitcoin as opposed to like US dollars. So like, do you want me to just finish this thread? What was your question?
Well, I mean, I want to. You brought it
up.
Well,
because we had a point. We made a point in our.
No, podcast. I know, but I want to see where you're going in regards to.
Well, I gotta finish the thread.
Okay. All right.
Quick math: if a robot can work 7,000 hours per year, and it costs 150,000 to buy a robot, like figure 2, per hour labor cost is 21 an hour for the year. This cost will go down as new robots and competition drives prices down, so per hour cost goes down to $3 an hour with the robot cost curve. Let's try this, how it will happen. In 1957, a computer like IBM 610 cost $55,000, $612,000 inflation adjusted. In 2000, a Dell computer costed around 1,000, which is 22.20 inflation adjusted, and computer prices went down by 99.64% in 50 years. How did the price of computers decrease so much in 50 years? By a reduction in the cost of two things: cost of storage per unit, average transistor price, which affects computer cost. Every computer has a CPU, which is built-in transistors. Since the 1950s, the numbers of transistors on microchips have doubled every 2 years, while the average price per transistor has decreased. Because of this, computers became cheaper, general, and mass-produced over time. So if you look at robots today, humanoids like Figure 2 and Optimus 2 have a price tag of $30,000 to $150,000. Different robots of 2024, as you can see right here, because this is going to be a reality. I think this is relevant. I think people should be ready for this.
Troy, we got a comment real quick. I want to read it to you because this goes down your alley. ETH would be in a completely different spot if it wasn't backed by an incel weirdo.
I mean,
that's a great comment. I wish I could hit a screen and like it. That's great.
Who commented that?
The Nate Governor Garrett?
Governor Garrett.
Yeah. Okay. From X. It's an X commenter.
No, he's
that's great.
He's a little
I would completely agree with that.
So
again, going back to
we have an XRP comment here. If we're getting in the comments,
what's
XRP?
up?
Oh, cool. Only took 5 years. All the people trapped now screaming they're up money are losers. Congrats, you held a dog shit token.
I retweeted that. I saw that and retweeted it. Yep.
Up or even a little.
I like that comment too.
It is virgin.
Give the XRP army some hope. The people that really did stick around, like, come on.
You're an idiot. Why? You could have made so much money, more money in Bitcoin. Like, you stuck around. Congratulations, you got even. Where you could have made like a 30x in Bitcoin or more. Like, what are we talking about here?
I know.
And the people
if you've been holding XRP this long, which I bet you no one in this thing
nobody has. The people
if you've been holding it this long, you might as well keep going. You might as well hold this cycle, and then you better sell it at the top of
the people that are getting excited
on it, and you better have an RSI, and you better look at it every day so you know when this thing peaks out.
The people getting excited probably bought it at $1, and they've basically gone from $1 to $3, and they think they're doing something in crypto. They made a 2x or 3x in crypto. It's like those are the people that are probably really doing the round trips, or like I said, the people that have been holding for 7 or 8 years and are finally back to even and are like, "Yay, awesome! I could have made so many more. You could have made more gains in Shiba Inu and Dogecoin at this point, which I don't advocate for. But it's like XRP doing these victory laps a couple of days is just like the biggest eye roll for somebody that's been in the space for as long as I have. It's like, dude, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing? Buy Bitcoin and shut your mouth. You know what I mean? Like, people just keep messing up the easiest play in history. Buy Bitcoin, if you're going to be in crypto, own Bitcoin. If not, you're a tourist. Good luck. Good luck, tourists.
Matt is calling you out.
No, I'm not. I mean,
hey man, I'm buying.
But
I'm going to buy a lot of Bitcoin. I will buy Bitcoin during the bear market.
You're doing strategies, and you have some sort of decision-making process that most people do not have. They're throwing darts at the board. They're trying to make millions with pennies, and then they get upset when their coin doesn't go up, the shit one that they pick.
I'm in this group chat right now. I just got added, and they're calling it the Trump pump is near. The Trump pump is near. It's making me think we're not going to pump.
For what? The Trump pump for what?
I don't know. I don't know. It's just this one group chat I was added into, and
no, I understand, but like, what's going to pump?
I don't know.
Well, it's Bitcoin. The whole market will pump once Trump gets inaugurated. Is the market idea behind it? Now that he's finally in office and alive and in office, fully sworn in, hits the ground running.
He's got to start. He's got to start doing some things, and some of the things that I already mentioned. If we're going to have any sort of pump.
And I really hope he does have proper security at that thing, because I was reading some tweets about the transfer of, the Secret Service with his security that he currently has, and like there's some. It's a little sus. So I mean, I hope that thing's locked, and he's a smart guy, so he will. But I really hope he stays protected, especially when he's out outside.
Bring up that Bob Elliott tweet. The U.S. inflation is stuck above the Fed's mandate. I want to talk about that real quick because that'll definitely have some juice into what we're going to be experiencing in the first couple of weeks of the Trump presidency, I think, or at least the first couple of months. I'll start reading it as you pull it up. U.S. inflation is stuck above the Fed's mandate despite all the rhetoric and hope otherwise. And a look across the board set of inflation data suggests not much progress is being made in recent months, and if anything, signs of upward pressures. This is from yesterday, core CPI numbers are expected to come in around 3.3% year over year, suggesting inflation is stabilizing above the Fed's mandate and stabilizing 1 to 1.5% above pre-COVID levels. A scan of broader set of inflation measures suggests stabilization in recent months. Core PPI released yesterday, if anything, continues to rise. ISM Services has shown no progress on inflation for a couple of years now and notably ticked up in the recent report. ISM manufacturing prices paid shows no further progress for a couple of years either. If anything, a rise relative to 2023. Small businesses' actual prices have remained pretty stable for the last year or so, suggesting no progress on inflation. And then it's got a chart showing from 2019 all the way to 2024. The Truflation reads, which as a headline inflation measure suggests that inflation has moved back up towards around 3% year over year, the highest level since the inflation scare early last year. It is particularly notable that all these measures of inflation appear to have stalled out or risen modestly in the last couple months, despite retail gas hitting lows of the last couple years. This suggests that the sticky inflation pressures are persistent. So here we are, where the Fed is in this place where we've talked about in the podcast before. They reacted late. They should have they should have raised rates a lot quicker. And then we got to a place where they should have started lowering rates a lot quicker. And we're not, we're in 2025 and they started lowering the rates in 2022. And we're still running over 3%. Like when you start doing math, if you average 3% over 10 years, you've lost a third of your buying power in a decade. That's crazy.
No, yeah, for sure.
Think about somebody that works a 30-year career, right? You work 30 years and you're living in a 3% inflation environment. You've lost 90% of your buying power during your working years. You're just getting eroded year after year. And let's say you work a job where they give you a 3% raise, you essentially make the same amount of money every single year.
As prices continue to go up.
Yeah. You're getting a 3% raise. Inflation is 3%.
And that's really the scam in the system. And nowadays, what's going on too is, people go to college, and I'm not talking about, doctors, lawyers, specific things like that. People go to college and they get like a business degree, and like general business degree, whatever, and they go and they start working for these companies, and it's just a climb. It's not, I'm going to grow within this company for years and years and years. Everyone's hopping around. I'm, fresh out of college, been out for, a year and a half now. Every single person, except for my friends that work in private equity that make real money, they're saying, oh, I'm going to go to this job, and I'm going to work here for a year, and then I'm going to go to this, and then I'm going to leverage it over here, because they have to do that now. And that's now the name of the game is it's not stay at a company for 25, 30 years and make a career there. It's go bounce around. And then that leads into the fact why no one wants to hire people in my generation. And then it feeds into the social media thing too. It's so easy to see, younger guys making money online, and it is attractive. The best bet you can ever make is the bet on yourself.
That's a fascinating point you just made.
It's not Bitcoin.
That's a fascinating point you just made, because you're right. Like, the new hustle right now for your generation is definitely to not rely on the job to give you the proper raise. It's to go out and leverage your skill set and just job hop your raises. So my job wants to give me 3%. Well, I'm going to go take a job that's going to give me 10% more than I'm making. And then I'm going to do that for a couple of years until I find another job that'll give me 10 or 15% more than I'm making. So they're artificially making pay raises where in the past you could stay with a company for a long period of time because you were able to get a real cost of living raise that would allow you to outpace inflation and allow you to upgrade your lifestyle, where now at the very best, you're just keeping pace, and at worst, you're falling way behind. So staying in a job is actually making you in a worse off position than if you were leveraging your skill set and trying to find you're right, from the employer's perspective, again, because companies and organizations are trying to make a profit, so they're going to pay what they're going to pay to try to keep their bottom line what it is, are looking at your generation like these people don't want to work because they have them for a couple of years and then they're gone, and like, oh, they don't want to work. But they're not realizing that it's not that they don't want to work. It's that they're figuring out the game faster than my generation was figuring out, or the boomer generation that never had to figure out because they had it easier, that this is how we have to play this game if we're going to survive. That's a 100%. Fascinating point. Very fascinating point that you made.
And to work for shekels on the dollar too.
Yeah.
I mean, how much are you really going to motivate someone paying them? I mean, I'm not going to spit out specific numbers because they're different for everyone. But, I mean, for me, if I would have to get paid considerable amounts of money to go in and actually work. But I work for myself now, and I know how it is, and I like to bet on myself. But, I mean, still, for these younger guys, they're out there, and they're like, dude, I don't make shit at my job. It sucks. Like, I need a different one. And then that comes down to the employer. If you're not paying your employees enough, and you're not incentivizing them in any way, and you don't design the company to where someone can actually, and that's the best companies, in my opinion, do this, is there's the ability to grow. And it's like, okay, once you do this, and that, you can get to the next level and you get paid right here. But if you're going to cap them out and make it like, oh, you can only make an extra like 10 grand a year by doing that. And then they see people online who can do 200X, 400X, 10,000X, on a coin, and make money that way. They're going to see this as crypto as like one of the real only ways out. And maybe that's motivation to actually learn it, study a system, get a mentor, go through trial and error, and actually jump in and start making money with this, because this is the glitch is crypto, in my opinion. You get cash flow from the matrix and you put it in crypto, and eventually you can fully escape the matrix and live off your crypto if you do it correctly.
I think there's an argument to be made that some of the biggest influencers in the crypto space right now are at that place in this ecosystem because they were at the right place at the right time. They were young. They're like, everybody thinks they want to go on social media and make money on social media. COVID happened. Everybody sat home. They created a channel. They're good speakers, and people, for whatever reason, followed them. And then they became the mouthpieces of our ecosystem, and people followed them, and they talk about the great investment advice that they give, but it's really the money that they're making on their social media accounts that fund. It's not that they're great traders, great investors, or they got in early on any coins and they're big holders of anything. It's just that they're making so much money from their social media accounts that they seem like they're something different than they really are. I mean, I think that's a common theme along many of the large following crypto accounts. Like, there's large following Bitcoin ones that are legitimate because they got in early and they really made their money in Bitcoin and they can speak on certain things. And those are the toxic maxis, I think, too. Like, and they have a right to feel the way that they feel and say what they say. But there's just a lot of this, like, everybody's trying to find an angle because it's so tough to, like you said, like, go out there, find a job, and then get disrespected when it's time to, like, talk about your pay raises. And it's like, dude, like, my prices are going up 10% across the board and you're coming here offering me 2 or 3. Like, I can't live on that. I got to find something that's going to at least keep me up with what I was doing before, not put me behind. And then on the employer side, the employers are looking at employees and saying, well, this generation doesn't want to work. They work for me for 1 or 2 years, and then all of a sudden, they quit. It's like, this generation doesn't want to work. It's like, no, they're working, but they're job hopping, and they're being smart. They figured out the glitch in the system.
Exactly.
They figured out the glitch in the system. That's, like I said, that's a fascinating point that you made. And I think, I've talked to a lot, not just like you and Troy, like, I've talked to some other younger people, and they have the same sort of mindset where it's like, dude, I'm not, and as a 47-year-old, like, I've even gotten to this place myself where it's like, I'm only going to be as loyal to a company as they are going to be to me, which isn't very loyal. Like, my loyalties to my family and to making money to support them. So like, if you're not going to be on board with that, then I'm going to go find somebody else that is. Like, the days of like grinding for 30 years with a company, I think are almost, if not dead. Yeah. Yeah,
They're done.
for sure.
They're
That's a
done.
great,
There's too
really good
much.
point.
There's too much information out there where people can see that they don't need to do that anymore. Like anyone who does that, I mean, there's some underlying reason behind it, or maybe they just like to be in that position. I don't know, but there's too much information on the internet. There's too many people who have successfully broken the system, and it's too widely accessible the knowledge on how to do so. So I think anyone that's, still in the matrix in those positions, grinding out, what's going to look like a 25-year position, eventually they're going to crack and they're going to come join the resistance on the other side in the real world. But to your point, also, the real traders and the best traders are not on social media. They're not traveling around the world like that. They're by their computer all day and they're sitting behind their screen. Those are the best traders, and you have to go out and you have to hunt them. They're not going to be on social media flexing all this crazy stuff, posting on their Instagram story every single 5 times a day. They don't have time to market like that and do that. If they are marketing, it's a team that's doing it. A professional trader spends a ton of time doing this activity. It's the best ones are on this all day long. And especially the lower time frames you get, the more time you have to be online. So think about that. Anyone who's selling a day trading course online and posting on their Instagram story is a fraud. If it's them posting actually on their Instagram story, they are a fraud, because they wouldn't have time to be doing that. And they wouldn't have time to be in all these different places because they have to be behind the computer. The lower time frame guys especially. So that's a point to watch out for. And if you want to find a good, just like general person online, I heard this from a very trusted source. Alex, his name is, in the real world, in Tate's real world, in the crypto space, the main guy over there, his name's Alex. He's legit. So like, if you want to find someone online to start learning this stuff, whatever level you're at, if you don't already have a mentor and you don't want to, take the risk of shelling out thousands and thousands of dollars to potentially give it to a fraudster who's, not going to teach you shit, Alex is a good place to start inside the real world. He's legit. He actually taught my mentor some stuff as well. So, and Troy's mentor, we have the same mentor. So he taught him some stuff, and that's just some free game right there. Alex within the real world.
It's important to definitely seek different viewpoints, different podcasts. Like there's a bunch of them out there that, I have my favorites. Don has his favorites. Matt has his favorites. So just be open-minded, make sure that you're following the right criteria, but also don't rent someone else's conviction. Make sure you develop your own thesis and develop your own evidence and data and models and stuff like that too. So that's another point.
100%. And for people that are more so just getting into it, I mean, I think just focusing on finding good information to start is going to be the key, because if you spend time consuming bad information, you're not only wasting time, but you're going completely backwards. So I think that's the biggest key for anyone who's, just hopping in, or maybe they don't feel like they understand it. There's a click that eventually happens. And I had that as well. I haven't even really been in the space that long. I mean, I've invested in crypto before, but this is my first real bull run, where I'm putting 40 plus hours into crypto a week. So, it eventually it clicks, but you have to have good information. You have to find the right people. And then you have to, you're going to build systems. It's a daily activity. If you want to, swing trade, or if you want to invest, buy and hold, like I said, the shorter the time frame, the more time you're going to spend on this. The longer time horizons, you can make 3 trades a year,
To speak on what you were saying, like when you're trying to learn something, the best way to learn anything is in the trenches, in the fields, with the person that you're trying to learn the skill set from. It's funny because, in my 47 years almost of life, I've always found that those that either can't perform or get burnt out go to universities and teach others what they couldn't do or couldn't perform or burned out doing. And that's another reason why I think, institutions of higher learning are just straight up trash. But if you're good and you're like loving what you do and you're really good at it, you're still in the field, putting the work in, doing it. So those are the people you want to find. You don't want to find somebody that's like, oh, I've done all this and I want to share it with the world. It's so no, dude. If you're really passionate and you're really good at it, you don't got time to share that shit with the world. And if you did do it good and do it well, you should be enjoying your money somewhere in Dubai and not trying to talk to people for $5.99 and whatever you charge in, wasting your Saturday morning or Friday night. It's wild. But we'll end on that. We're right close to the hour. So. Matt, thank you very much for jumping on the podcast. Much appreciated. Thanks for adding to the conversation. If you don't follow these gentlemen, please do. Our socials will be tagged on there. I'm Matt Rinaldi Don on X, Defion Productions on YouTube, Don Rinaldi on Facebook. You guys can plug yours if you want. Go ahead, Matt.
Cobra, COBRA_wise1, Cobra_wise1 on Twitter. Search Dr. Kavanaugh as well.
He's very wise. He's a doctor.
What about you, Troy?
Just at crypto with a K_Troy on X. We have the YouTube Defion Productions. And yeah, that's really good.
And this podcast is proof that shitcoiners and Bitcoin maxis can hold hands, hug, and sing Kumbaya. Until next week, the only live stream Bitcoin crypto podcast in Western New York, 11 o'clock Eastern on Thursdays. Thanks for supporting. Don't trust, verify.
Don't
Deuces.
trust, verify.